This is half a pound of fat, and for the average woman sitting around 25% body fat, you would need to lose roughly 8 to 12 pounds of fat to start seeing defined abs. For most people, this could take anywhere from 6 months to over a year. But what if there was a way to speed up fat loss without losing your muscle, without starving yourself, and without doing endless ab workouts? Well, there actually is, and it's stupidly simple. So in this video, I'm going to break down exactly how to get abs in the next 60 days, how to sustainably maintain visible abs once you get there, and also why most women spiral before they ever start to see their abs properly come through. But only 2% of people, male or female, ever get lean enough for their abs to truly pop. And that's because most of them underestimate how much fat they actually have to lose. For women, abs typically start to become visible somewhere between 25 to 18% body fat. And for men, somewhere around 15%. So if you're above those ranges, it's not that you don't have abs. You do. They're just covered by a layer of fat. Women naturally carry around 10% more body fat compared to men, so 33% body fat for a woman would be the same as what 23% would be for a man. And this is where a lot of people get frustrated because they're eating healthy, they're working hard, they're hitting the gym, but visibly, nothing's really changing. So here's where it gets important. It's not just about losing fat, it's about how fast you lose it. Because if you really wanted to, you could lose 20 pounds in a month. But if you want to hang on to your muscle, then there's a limit to how fast you should go. There's actually been a few studies on this, and research from Dr. Eric Helms found that the ideal rate of fat loss is around 0.5 to 1% of your body weight per week. So for most women, that's roughly around 0.5 to 1 pounds of weight loss per week. And that might not sound like a lot, but this is where people go wrong. Because if you try to speed it up too much, you lose muscle, your energy tanks, your workouts get worse, and you end up looking smaller but not toned. And this is exactly why some people lose weight, end up skinny fat, and don't actually like the way their body looks at the end. If this is you, by the way, trust me, I know how frustrating it is. So I'll share some specific tips for people who are skinny fat at the end of the video. Personally, if I was doing a fat loss phase, I'd probably aim for a rate of weight loss around 0.6% of my body fat per week. But to get abs as fast as possible, you want to push that closer to 0.9 to 1% per week. To find out roughly how long it'll take you to see your abs, choose which picture best matches your current body fat, and then underneath is how long it'll take you to get to 20% as a woman, and for men, here's the equivalent. If your goal was to go from 30% to 20% body fat as a woman, assuming you're losing around 0.5 of your total body weight per week, that would take roughly around 140 to 200 days. But here's where things get interesting. Because if you build muscle while you're dieting, which is totally possible when things are dialed in, your body fat percentage is going to drop faster, meaning that you can start seeing visible abs in as little as 60 days. So yes, you do need to be in a calorie deficit, but that does not mean eating as little as possible. And I know that's what a lot of people think because they'll come to me for coaching and be like, so I tried to get abs before, but I just ate less and did more cardio because I thought it would get me there faster. But I just ended up completely burnt out. Yeah, because you're running yourself into the ground. What actually works is creating a moderate calorie deficit. Something you can stick to consistently, because if your calorie deficit is too big, the hunger you experience just isn't going to be sustainable. Now, to lose 1 pound of fat per week, you'll need to be in a calorie deficit of around 500 calories. But to make things more sustainable, we're going to use a 300 to 400 calorie deficit, then speed up the rate of fat loss more with an exercise that we'll talk more about in a bit. However, there is a problem, because all of this is great in theory, right? But getting abs is probably not your sole life focus. Maybe you work an intense job, have 3 kids, you're studying for an exam, or even work night shift. It is still possible to stay on top of your nutrition, but instead of just cutting out food, we've got to focus on making smarter choices. Things like switching full-fat dairy to low-fat dairy, air frying instead of using oil, using sugar-free sauces or low-fat spreads instead of butter. Those are tiny swaps that are barely noticeable in practice, but those swaps alone could get you into your 300 calorie deficit. And just as some more inspiration, all of these meals are under 500 calories for the whole thing and are exactly the kind of meals that my clients can prep in advance and take with them on the go to stay satisfied throughout the day. You can definitely eat big, satisfying meals and still lose fat. And one of the most important parts of this is, you guessed it, protein. Because if you're not eating enough protein, then your body's more likely to break down muscle tissue while you're in a calorie deficit, which is the opposite of what we want. Having muscle mass is what gives you that quote-unquote toned look. So if you lose weight without maintaining muscle, you don't look leaner, you just look smaller. As a general rule of thumb in a fat loss phase, each day you want to aim for around 1 gram of protein per pound of your current body weight. Some people will say to base it off of your ideal body weight, but in a fat loss phase especially, there's really no harm in pushing protein a bit higher, even closer to around 2 grams per pound. Because protein actually takes more calories for your body to digest than carbs or fats. So eating a higher protein diet can be really beneficial, and you'll also be ensuring that you're supplying your body with all of the building blocks it needs to build new muscle tissue as well. But the crazy thing is as you build more muscle, you'll actually have to eat more just to maintain your current weight, because muscle mass is more metabolically active than fat mass, so it burns more calories just to exist on your body. But obviously to build muscle, you've got to be doing the right exercises, so let's talk about training. This is where one of the biggest misconceptions comes in, because doing ab workouts alone is not going to give you abs. When you're in a calorie deficit, your body still needs energy, and it can get that energy from two main sources, your fat or your muscle. And if you're not doing resistance training, then it's going to take that from both. There's actually a really interesting example of this in a video I saw where someone lost weight by just dieting and doing ab workouts. And out of the weight they lost, a big portion of it was muscle, not actually fat. So at the end, their body fat percentage didn't really change, and they didn't look much leaner either. Let's compare that with strength training. Lifting weights sends a signal to your body saying, we need muscle, please hang on to this. And that forces your body to prioritize burning fat instead. Ab workouts have their place, and I'll get into that in a sec, but instead of doing endless ab circuits, focus on strength training 3 to 4 times a week, progressively overloading in your lift, so you're increasing the reps or the way that you lift over time, training your entire body, and treat your abs just like any other muscle group. I feel like people think to get abs you need to train them every day and then do high reps, but your abs are a muscle just like any other muscle on your body. You need to be using progressive overload, whether that is adding resistance, adding weight over time, or really being intentional about those movements and slowing them down, focusing on that time under tension. If you're just doing full long body weight ab workouts, there's not really much room for progression there. So if you are doing those kind of workouts, you've got to be smart about intentionally progressing with them. And while we're talking about misconceptions, another myth that we need to bust right now is that abs are made in the kitchen, because they're not. Abs are built in the gym and revealed in the kitchen. And yes, you should train your abs directly, because if you don't build the muscle that creates that six pack, then when you diet down, they won't pop and you won't get that definition you want. Not all ab exercises are created equal though, so some of my top ones would be knee tucks. You can start off without the weight and build up, hanging knee raises, and tuck dragon flags, which are really great for progressions, and you can also do them at home. Depending on the exercise, you can shift the emphasis to target different areas of your abs, so I'll link a video where I go through the exercises to target your lower, rectus abdominis, and obliques. Think of it like this: training builds the muscle and then fat loss reveals it. And you could have really strong abs, but if your body fat isn't low enough, then you're not going to see them either. Another massive trap people tend to fall into when they're trying to get abs is thinking that you've got to do loads and loads of cardio. Cardio helps, but it's not the main driver of fat loss. And you'll probably be really excited to hear this, because one of the most effective things you can do to lose fat is walking. Getting your steps in is so underrated. It's low effort, it's easy to recover from, and it increases your daily calorie burn without exhausting you. Just increasing steps from around 5,000 to 10,000 per day can burn roughly an extra 200 calories every single day. And that adds up massively over time. So this is your sign: don't overcomplicate it, set a steps goal and stick to it. But here's the thing: the more aggressive you are with fat loss, the harder it is to stick to. And this is where most people fail, because they try to be perfect, they go all in, and then they end up burnt out. This is also why over 80% of people who try to lose weight too quickly end up gaining it back, if not more than they were trying to lose in the first place. This next part is something that I think is massively overlooked, and it can slow down your progress by half. Sleep. There was a study where two groups were put in the same calorie deficit, but one of the groups slept around 8 hours per night, whereas the other group slept 5 to 6. Both groups lost a similar amount of weight, but the composition of that weight loss was completely different. I think you can probably guess where this is going, but the group who slept properly lost a much greater percentage of fat, whereas the sleep-deprived group lost more muscle and less fat. And the reason for that is because when you're not getting enough sleep, your cortisol rises, your recovery gets worse, and your body becomes less efficient at burning fat. So you could be doing absolutely everything right, but if your sleep is poor, your results will be too. And there's another really important thing that I think a lot more girls need to understand, because it's going to save you a lot of frustration, and it's that fat loss looks different for women. Yeah, we already know that women carry more fat than men, and men usually carry more muscle mass. But on top of that, fat distribution is different. Men tend to store more fat around their stomach, whereas women tend to store it more around their hips and thighs. So what that means is women usually see changes in their stomach sooner, but it can take them longer to get that really defined and shredded look. And if you look at a graph of weight loss for men versus women, men, it tends to just go straight down. But for women, it might look more like a little wave. This is definitely one of the biggest things I see throws women off most on a fat loss journey, because your cycle is going to play a massive role in it. It can really get to you mentally when you're putting in the work, you're in a calorie deficit, you're doing all the right things, but for that entire week, you just don't seem to be able to lose any weight. And even when you look in the mirror, some days you might see those abs starting to come through, and then the next day, suddenly you're bloated and you can't really tell. You're feeling fluffy, you're feeling soft, the number on the scale isn't moving in the direction that you want it to, and that happens every single month. So not gonna lie, in terms of fat loss, women definitely have it harder from a mental standpoint, because your weight loss is not gonna be linear. And that can make you feel like you're going backwards when you're actually not. The one thing that's really helpful is learning to recognize the patterns so that you know which points in the month you're going to be more bloated. Maybe you notice that your mood's a little bit lower. Make a note of that so you know when to expect it. Then when those weeks come, don't change anything. The mistake most women make if they've not seen weight loss in 2 or 3 days is suddenly decreasing their calories. You want to wait this out. Give it at least 7 days before you consider making any changes. And if you do ever reach a point where your energy is just super low and you're having cravings and you just don't feel like this is sustainable, you can take a break. It's not about constantly chasing perfection, it's about consistency. And consistency doesn't look like showing up every single day with 100%. It's about showing up with the best you have that day and looking at the longer term. Even if you showed up consistently every single day 5 to 6 days a week and had 1 off day per week, you're still going to see great progress long term. At the end of the day, fitness and your goal of getting abs is part of your life, not your entire life. So we need to treat it like that. And what works for one person won't necessarily work for the next, because we are all so different. So if you do want more help to get results on your fitness journey with a completely tailored training and nutrition plan to get you to your goals, fit with your schedule, and one that you actually enjoy as well, because that is a whole super important part of it, then you can apply for one-to-one coaching in the description. So is it possible to get abs in 60 days? Yeah. But it may not be the right approach for everyone. But if you're struggling with being skinny fat right now, then check out this video next, because I walk you through exactly how to approach it. Subscribe, I love you so much, and I'll see you there. Bye.